Again, welcome to CS 101, Introduction to Programs Using Python at Rutgers University. This is our second lectures. Our main objective is to write and run a simple Python program, also to explain the basic syntax of a Python program, explain the importance of, and also provide example of proper programming style and documentation. We're also going to explain the difference between syntax, runtime, and also logic errors. So before we start, I'll go through the process of downloading and also installing the Python IDLE, which is what we are going to use in our classroom. Also, we can use, for example, Spider, Jupyter. There are so many different Python platforms or IDLE that we can use. But again, in our classroom, we have access to Python. So here I can either click or I can either go to python.org or go to Google. But since we already know where we can download it from, let's just type there. So yeah, this is python.org. And now we are in the platform. The option is here. Again, it depends on what operating system you are using. I'm using Windows, so I'll click on Windows. If you are using Mac OS or other platforms, we can have different platforms, including Linux. I think the most common one is Linux, Windows, and of course, Mac OS, which is Apple computers. So we have Linux and we have Windows. So yeah, I'm going to click on Windows because Windows is what I have. Again, I have this already in my computer, so it won't give me the option to install. But again, when you click on the download finish and you click on it, you will get the option to install. Here, I have it already, so it's telling me whether I want to modify what I have already or repair or uninstall it. If I don't want to use it no more, I don't need it. So I will stop the process here. But again, you should see an option to install. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is to run the program. So here I'll go to my program. Again, I have the IDLE Python. So I'll click on it. And this is what we are going to use. Now, there's two modes here. We can use it as something like a calculator, or we can write a source file. So let's say, for example, I can type 7 plus 7. When I press enter, it will give me 14. Or any mathematics or any, so for example, I want to print hello on my screen. So I type the code print hello. When I press enter, it will print the hello. So this is more or less like an interaction mode. Now, most of the time, we are going to write a source file. So I'll click on file, click new. Then you can type your message. Yeah, I already have a message, so I just paste it. So the pound sign here means whatever on this line is a comment. The Python interpreter will ignore it. Our first command is to print, and we are printing a string, welcome to Python. This is called a string because it's in double quotation. Again, we will explain all this as time goes on the theory. The goal here is my goal here is that to go through the steps how to use the software. So we have two statements. You type it finish, excuse me. Then we can save it. So I click save as. The name can be any name, but don't start with a digit. And there are some symbols we cannot use. But again, we will discuss this later on. So I just name. And I'll save it on my desktop. Then I can run it now. So I'll click on the run button here and then run module. And we can see our output. Welcome to Python. Python is fun. So again, that's how you use the Python IDLE. You start it. You can either use it as a calculator interaction mode, but most of the time we are going to write a big program. So we're always going to create a source file. The good thing with the source file is that you can save it and you can run it at any time, review it at any time. But on the interaction mode, you cannot save it. When you close it, it's gone. Now, if you decided to use other platforms such as Jupyter, Spider, Nakoda, it's up to you. But I also have a Spider here. I'm only using Spider and Nakoda. Spider and a Python. So this is my Spider. I'm going to start it now. Now, when you start a Spider, you are going to get a 3 section of the interaction here. So here, the first on my left side is where we are going to write the command. You can see I have a temp.py and also a second file. This means I have these 2 files. I can close it at any time by clicking on the X to close it. Now, on the upper right side, this in case we declare variable or we create any object, we can see all the list of the object that we have in our program here. And on the lower right side here, this is where you see your output of the program. So let's say, for example, we are going to write a program. So what I'm going to do now is to close everything, and then I can click File, New. Then I'm just going to paste the same code here. The first thing I'm going to do is to save it. So I'll go to File, Save As, and I'll give it any name again. .py. Again, Python always the file extension is .py. I'm going to save it on my desktop, and I'll click the Run button, which is the green button here. Or you can go to the menu, click Run, and then Run. And we can see that the output is on the lower right side. Welcome to Python. Python is a fun. So again, those are the 2 possible. Again, it's up to you. You can use any Python IDL you want to use in the class. But in our computer lab, again, we have only Python IDL. So we start with our theory. What is a Python? Yeah, we say a Python is a general purpose programming language, which means we can use a Python to almost create different types of applications, software applications. Example, business applications, web applications, data analysis applications, etc. Python also have so many packages. This is one of the advantage of using Python. A package means there's a set of code that can perform a specific task. So if I have that code and I want to perform that task, then I don't need to write the code again. So package is like a predefined classes, or I would say code that we can use. A very good example then would be the machine learning package. For example, if I want to analyze the data using a specific algorithm, such as, let's say, support vector machine or neural networking algorithm, Python machine learning package already have that algorithm implemented. So this means I don't have to write the code. The only thing I have to know how to use it. So that's the advantage of Python, has so many packages. So this means you can use Python to write code for any programming task. Python also is very popular now because it's used in Google search engines. Also, it's used in NASA for mission critical projects. Also, one of the largest stock exchange in US, New York Stock Exchange. Most of the applications also use Python. So next, what is Python? So here we say Python is an object-oriented programming language. So data in Pythons are objects created from classes. And also a class is essentially a type that defines the object of the same kind with properties and methods for manipulating objects. For example, Java, C++, they are all also object-oriented programming language. Object-oriented programming language is based on classes. So a class normally consists of 2 things. We have the attributes, And also we have the behavior, which will be the methods. So let's say, for example, I want to write a program and I want to deal with some vehicle, let's say a vehicle. So this means I'm going to create a vehicle class. Now, when I create a vehicle class, two things. What are the characteristics of the vehicle class? Those will be the attributes or the data. And also what will be the behavior of the vehicle? So those will be the methods or the functions. So example of an attribute or data member of a vehicle can be the model, the wheel drive, the type of wheel drive, how many doors it has, and the color, etc. These are all attributes of the car. Now the behavior can be, we can park the car, we can drive the car, we can stop it. Another example will be an employee class. Employee class normally will be the characteristics of employee. Let's say the employee hourly rate, name, address. So these are all characteristics. What will be the behavior of an employee? Maybe the employee can work overtime. We can calculate his salary. We can check if he's late, how many hours he work in a week. So these are all behavior. So Python history, Python was created in 1990 by Goodo and Russell. It's an open source program, which means, again, it's almost free. We have access to it for free. And there's Python 2, but now we are in Python 3. So Python 3 is the newer version, and that's what we are going to use in this class. So in case you download Python 2, remember that most of the time when you download Python 2, you can't run it on Python 3. That's if you write your code or you have a textbook in Python 2, some of the code cannot be used in Python 3. So by Python 3 support Python 2. So here we say Python 3 is a newer version, but it's not backward compatible with Python 2. This means if you write a program using Python 2, it may not work on Python 3. So we saw we saw the launching of the Python. And this is how the IDLE again looks like, the Python shell. And also we saw this program display two messages, which is print welcome to Python, also Python is fun. Let's see this program here also. So again, as we said, this is a comment to display two messages. We are going to print welcome to Python. Python is a fun. So let's click the animation and start it. So first the statement display welcome to Python. And the second statement again will display Python is a fun. Here we have a question saying, note that in all code animation, you can use mouse finger to move, highlight, and also explanation, output, and check your understanding box freely. And also is the indentation for statement important in Python? So that's a question they're asking, if indentation is important. The answer is yes, and we may explain the reason why later on. So that's correct. In Python, again, we don't use parentheses much. So we use indentations a lot. So again, creating and editing using a Notepad. This is an option, but again, as we said, in our classroom, again, we are going to use the Python IDLE. But also we can use the Notepad to write our code. Then, again, this is our code tracing. As we said, again, this will print two statements for us. Then after we write the code, we use the command-driven interface to invoke the Python again. But again, we are going to use the Python IDLE. So let's see our second example here. In Python, as we said, we can do arithmetic operations. So for example, here we say print. You can see that everything is in double quotation. So which means we are going to print exactly what is here. So it will print 10.5 plus 2 times 3 divided by 45 minus 3.5 equal to. Then you can see the second line or the print we don't have no quotation. So this is where the arithmetic operation will take place. So the solution of the expression will be printed here. Again, we shall go through all this step by step. So first, let's start the animation. So we can see our output is the same expression that is printed. Next, we will see the value. So the value for the expression is 0.39759030, etc. And later on again, we're going to explain why we have the first statement with double quotation and the second statement, no double quotation. But in a very simple way, we'll say that with double quotation is a string. A string means whatever you have is what will be printed. When we want to print a value or a content in a variable, we don't put it in double quotation. Otherwise, we are going to print what we write. So anatomy of a Python program, as we said earlier, Python program consists of statements, comments, and indentation. So a statement represents an action or a sequence of actions. For example, we have the statement print welcome to Python. So that's an action or a task that needs to be done. In this case, we want to print welcome to Python or our screen. Indentation is very important in Python. Indentation matters in Python because let's see the example here. If we have the straight two messages, but you can see print doesn't align with the second print. And this may give us an error because with Python indentation, the alignment have to be the same. Now, if we indent one statement inside the other, it means all the statement that belongs to the previous statement we have. Again, we're going to explain this, especially when we start to write the Python functions. So here we said that note that the statements are entered from the first column in the new line. It will cause an error if the program is typed as following. So the indent is very important. They have to be aligned together the same. In Python also, we have a special symbols. Example, we saw the open and close parentheses, normally used with functions. We use it with the print function. We also saw the pound sign. Pound sign always is when we want to write a command line. We have to start with when we want to write a comment line, we need to start with the pound sign. Now, the open and close double quotation is for strings. Anytime we want to write a string, we have to enclose it with double quotations. Also, we may have open and close quotation marks. Now, if I want to print a quotation mark, I need to have a parenthesis around it. A quotation around it also. Now, programming style and documentation. First thing, this is very important, appropriate comments. Anytime we write a program, especially a very large program, a comment normally will explain what the set of code is doing, if it's a variable, what the content are, etc. So proper indentation and spacing lines also is very important. So what is appropriate comment? Here we say we should include at least a summary at the beginning of the program to explain what the program is going to do, the task or the main objective of the program. We should have very short 1 or 2 sentences to summarize. And also the program key features. If it has any data structures, we can explain, or any unique techniques the program uses, we can explain. It's also very important if we can include our name, the class section, instructor name, date, and also the brief description of the beginning of the program. And that's for our homework assignments. Proper indentation and spacing. We say indentation, we should always indent 4 spaces. Again, this is it's a suggestion. The spaces is up to you. But the only thing is that we have to make sure all the indentation are in order. The alignment of them are correct. So that's what we said. They're consistent. Spacing style makes a program clear and easy to read, debug, and maintain. Also, spacing, we should always use the blank line to separate segment of code. This will make the program again more easy to be read. Now, there are three types of errors in almost any programming language. The first is the syntax error. Syntax error, so we can use the term grammatical error. This is where the Python, for example, I write a Python program print command. Now, print is supposed to be lowercase. If I start with uppercase, I'm going to get an error because Python doesn't understand. Python is a case-sensitive program. So a syntax error will mean there's a grammatic, for example, in English, I know at the end of a sentence, I can end it with a period. Now, if I don't have the period there, it means the sentence, that's not the end yet. So for example, in Python, at the end of the statement, we don't put a period. So if I put a period, I'm going to have a syntax error. Then a runtime error normally causes the program to stop. When a runtime error means there's no syntax error. Syntax error is easy to detect because when you compile the program or use the interpreter will recognize the syntax error for us. It's easy. But a runtime error normally occurs after there's no syntax error. Let's say we divide the value by 0. When I divide the value by 0, there's no answer. So this program will stop. Or if I find the square root of a negative value, it will know there's no solution for that. Now, a logic error is very difficult to detect. This is error that causes by the programmers. So for example, I want to find a sum of two numbers and I wrote a product of two numbers. Yeah, you get the answer correct. But in computer, we say garbage in, garbage out. So if I write a program to find a sum of two numbers and I wrote a product of two numbers, then I won't get the sum of two numbers. I'll get the product of two numbers. So this error normally produce incorrect results. And this problem was caused by the programmer. So let's get started with going. Again, in this course, sometimes we are going to use the total package. Also, as time goes on for our developing, going programming, that's graphical user interface program, Windows program. So here we say graphical user interface is a great tool to motivate students and also stimulate student interest in program. Because in this case, again, you will see, you write a program and instead of seeing a result on a brush screen, here you can see an object. For example, we can create a nice object, and etc. So again, I won't go details on this, but we will go through the main goal here is that we just want to give an introduction to Python. So for example, if I want to use the total package, the first thing we do, we import the total. Here you can see that we say pen size. The pen size is when we are drawing the image, the thickness of it is measured in pixels. So I want to start drawing an image. If I want the image lines to be very thick, then I'll increase the size. Or I can set it on default. So the first pen size will set the size of the pen. Then pen up means we don't want to write. Because if you set the pen size and the pen is in a location, by default location, and you start to write and that's not where you are going to start from, then you need to bring the pen up. So when you bring the pen up, it's not going to write. So we bring the pen up and then we say go to. Go to will take us to the location we want to start. So normally this is again 2 dimensions. So it's X and Y axis. So you can see we put the pen down now. So putting the pen down, we can either draw, color, or do anything. Here we want to draw, we want to color. So fill, begin fill. And then the color we are going to fill is red. And here we want to draw a circle, but you can see that a circle, but we have steps equal to 3, which means it will be a triangle. The steps tell us the triangle. And this is the measurement 30. So again, we shall go through this in detail, But the goal is just to get the idea. So let's see if we can run this program and see the output. It's taking very long, but this is the output. So you can see the first we draw a triangle because we say total dot circle, the steps are 3. Here we draw a square, so we have 4 sides. So you can see that we are using the same circle again, but this time the steps will be 4. If we want to draw a pentagon, it's 5. So the steps will be 5. Draw a pentagon, then hexagon is 6, etc. And we can see that the size is the same 30. So we can see the image length. And also each one, the first one, we begin fill with the color of red. The second object, we begin fill with the color of blue. So we have blue, green, etc. So that will be the conclusion of our lectures. Again, the main goal of these lectures is to start with the basic concept, especially the platform. What is a Python, IDLE, how to use it, how to download it. And the program that we went through again, we shall go through the theory more detail in our next lectures. But here, just basically how to use the Python IDLE. So again, see you in the next lectures. Thank you.